It's good to see you as always. I'm so stoked to come back with another workshop. We are going to be talking about decision making. We are going to spend 35 minutes and we are going to walk through the process on how to make decisions big and small. So let me share my screen real quick. View, present. There we go. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about decision making. Making decisions can be really, really difficult. You need to figure out a lot of factors. You might have to weigh pros and cons. You might have to figure out what other people around you think. So I'm breaking this down into a 6-step process, and we together as a group are going to make a really simple decision to demonstrate this process. So our 6 steps that we're going to be going through today are: number 1, take a deep breath. Number 2, figure out your options. 3 is research. 4 is pros and cons. 5 is emotions and culture. And 6 is make a decision. So the decision that we are going to make today is, what should you wear on your feet in the house? I got this question by going onto my Discord server and being like, guys, what's a really weird question I can ask my students so that they can figure it out in this workshop? And one person suggested this. So that's what we're going to be working on together today, is to figure out what we want to wear on our feet while we're inside the house. And you all might have your own opinions about this already. We will factor that in, don't worry, but we're gonna go through the process together. So the first thing that you need to do when you're going to make a decision is take a deep breath. Don't panic. If it is possible, you want to approach every decision with a calm heart, not in a place of panic or heightened anxiety, because if you are full of cortisol and norepinephrine and you're kind of freaking out about what you're going to do, you will not be able to go through all 6 steps of this decision-making process, and you're like terrified, fleeing from a bear brain is the one that's going to get to make the decision, instead of your chilling at home, making good decisions brain. This isn't always possible. Sometimes you have to make a decision in a rush. Sometimes you have to make a decision while you're anxious and you just can't calm yourself down. And I know that there have been other workshops over the summer on how to sort of come to terms with heightened emotions. Some of you might have therapists that can help you deal with times you're really stressed, or you've got coping mechanisms, which we talked about a couple times over the summer. But if you can, when you are going to make a big decision, don't panic. It's also worth wondering, how major is the decision that you need to make? Whether you're going to wear socks or go barefoot inside the house, not so much of a big decision. This is a low impact decision that we are making as a group today. What you're going to do after high school, kind of a bigger decision. If you're wondering, I should go to college, should I go to officer training, should I go to technical school, should I start work right away, am I starting a family? Those are larger decisions, and so we're going to model the process that you could use for that. But if it's a minor decision, you get to freak yourself out a little bit less. And the last thing for this taking a deep breath stage is take a longer time to decide if you can. If someone is like, you have to decide by tomorrow, then don't follow this last piece of advice. But if you've got some time to make a decision, don't rush into it. Lay out your pros and cons, go through this whole process, allow yourself to fully ponder the experience that you are having. So the first thing you want to do is just, which can be really hard if you are freaking out. If you have one day to make a big decision, it is even more important to calm yourself down. Oh, Melissa said, always ask for more time if possible, which is so, so true. Or like, don't be like me in high school and make all of your decisions last minute right before they're due. When an option is presented to you, start thinking about it right away. Take the full length of time that you have. But if you're in a situation where you've only got a short amount of time, don't freak out. Don't immediately start panicking and planning. Take a deep breath. That is your first step. Your second step is figuring out your options. These were the options I was thinking of when it came to what you want to wear on your feet while you're hanging around inside your house. You could be barefoot, you could wear socks, you could wear house slippers or street shoes. Are there any other options that I'm missing that I couldn't think of? If so, please put it in the chat. I'd love to add another one to the list. Yeah, couldn't think of one either, but if you can, that's great. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is figure out your options. And again, I'm going to sort of jump back to that, what do you want to do after high school option? I know a lot of folks here are, not quite in your senior year. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do next. You've got a little bit of time to start planning. Start figuring out your options. Use your imagination to figure out your options. Ask other people to figure out what your options are. Lay all of the possibilities in front of you so you have all of the information that you need. Once you have laid out your options, it's time to do a little bit of research. Research is when you take all of your available options and you try to find out all of the possible information about each of these options. So the places that I listed here on the screen are some of the ways that you can do research, but this is not the full extent. Number one option is Google. Google is your friend. You can literally Google, should I go to college or should I go to technical school? And someone will give you some really great advice. You can Google, should I wear socks inside the house or street shoes? People will have advice about that. But you can also look up just plain information about each one of your options. You can look up what thread count various socks have and where you can get affordable socks. You can look up the bacterial content of the dirt in your neighborhood to find out if you really want to track that inside your house. You could go on a medical incidents page and find out how many people get splinters in their feet every year from inside the home. You can look up information about each of your options to provide you with more data. I love data. Another thing that you're going to want to use to get information about all of your options is literature. So if we're looking at this whole what's after high school situation, your guidance counselor probably has a bunch of brochures in their office. Hopefully they do. Or if not, you can email them and they'll send you a bunch of links. Often there is already assembled information about the choices that you need to make. So if you are trying to figure out what dishwasher to buy, get a whole bunch of brochures. Go to Lowe's and grab a brochure from every one of the dishwashers that's available so you can compare them to each other. What's going to fit in your space? What's going to use the most water? What is going to use the most electricity? What has high instances of broken glasses in the dishwasher? You're going to want to get literature. You might even want to take books out of the library or buy books from like bookshop.org or something in order to get really well-reasoned lists of information about your topics. Oh, I'm so excited that this ties in perfectly with your last workshop. Something that absolutely counts as research is asking for advice. A lot of people are like, no, decisions should only be made based on tangible information. There are people in your life who have so much more experience than you do. I'm 30 and I call my mom a lot. And I'm like, Ima, I need to sew a dress. Where should I get the best kind of fabric? Or what was that place that you got the brunch tray last year? I need to get something for 30 people and I don't really know where to go. Adults in your life absolutely have experience and you should take advantage of it. A lot of you are teens and maybe early 20s. You're probably a little bit sick of adults lecturing you sometimes about choices, and that's understandable. But if you have a good relationship with adults around you, see if they have had similar experiences to what you are trying to figure out. So you might ask your mom, or you might notice hey, what do you wear on your feet when you're in the house? And your mom might say, well, I get very cold feet, so I wear 4 pairs of socks. And you're like, okay, that isn't relevant to me. But your mom might be like, oh, when I was younger, a box fell on my foot and I was real glad I was wearing shoes in the house. So this advice from people who are older than you is so valuable. And bless you, Melissa. Melissa said, I'm here for advice if you ever need it. That's so fantastic. I mean, same. I'm only 30, so I have a little bit less life experience than maybe some of the other trainers in this summer program. But finding someone who has experienced something that you are looking into could be so great. Like you guys learned about me the other week, I went to community college before I went to Temple University. Sometimes teenagers come to me and they're like, hey, what was the experience like of going to community college? And that was information that I could give someone. You can ask your friends. You might have friends who are older than you and have already gone through the processes that you are going to go through. There might be different rules when you go to your friends' houses that you step inside and their dad is like, take your shoes off, no shoes allowed in the house. You can see what experiences the people around you have had. You can ask your partners if you are dating someone or you live with someone, that if they have advice, if they have gone through a similar experience, if they maybe have an opinion about it, maybe because they live with you, you're building your home together and you'd like this to be a sock-free home, no socks allowed, all socks thrown away at the door. You get to interact with people and find out what choices you want to make together. You can reach out to a guidance counselor or other like mental health expert or a therapist if you have one. There are people in your life who are there to help you make decisions. And those are people that are probably genuinely happy to help you make decisions. You can reach out to professionals. If you might want to reach out to someone who maybe professionally knits socks for a living. You could reach out to a cobbler. You could reach out to a podiatrist, a doctor who works with feet, to be like, hey, what's the healthiest thing to put on your feet when you're going to be in the house? Oh, this is great. Kayla said in the chat, my teacher told me if you don't get into your goal school, you should go to CCP because it's still a quality education and you can always switch to a different school later. That's what ended up happening in my situation. I went to Montgomery County Community College and then CCP, and I got an associate's degree there and transferred into Temple scot-free into a third-year program at that point. And I was bummed about it when it happened, but God, it saved me tens of thousands of dollars and I got an incredible education. So yeah, I'm really glad your teacher said that to you, Kayla. It sounds like a professional in your life gave you some advice about that decision, which is pretty great. So you can always reach out to professionals. If we're, moving away from the jokey sock conversation, you can reach out to a professional in your field. I have people reach out to me who want to become sex educators, and they say, hey, can we grab a cup of coffee together? Over the last year and a half, it's been virtual coffee. And they say, how did you become a sex educator? How did you get your degree? How did you get into the work that you are doing? Professionals are often delighted to have people reach out to them and say, can you give me information about your field? If you can, buy them a cup of coffee. It's nice to be like, thanks so much for the information and the expertise. I value you. But it's really important that you feel like you can ask people. And the last thing that absolutely counts as research is past experiences. If you have worn socks in the house in the past and that made you happy and that was something that felt comfortable for you, that's information for you to use to build your future case. If you, while you were in high school, took a class at CCP for a special piece of information, then you get to use that information to decide if that college is a good fit for you. So all of these count as the research stage of your decision making. Any way to get information is going to be part of your research stage. Next is my favorite part, pros and cons. And we are going to be building these together in the chat of this room. We're going to go through all 4 of our footwear options and we are going to build our pro and con lists. We're going to start with a classic, going barefoot in the house. You get home from work, you get home from school, you kick off your sandals, you kick off your socks and shoes, and you are barefoot in the house. My friends in the chat, what are some of the pros of being barefoot in your house? I know this seems goofy, it is goofy on purpose. Pro, it's comfortable. Absolutely. Yep. Someone else says it's the most comfortable. You get to feel free. Let your toes breathe. I see a comment from Kayla. We're just doing pros right now. Renee says, I trip less without shoes. It's very funny. What are some other pros to going barefoot? This is less inside. It's easier to climb trees barefoot. No socks to wash. Yep. Extra feet to wash maybe, but no socks to wash. Pro, you might clean the floor with your feet. Yes. I love that. Other pros, if you just got a rad pedicure, you can show that off. If you're a sweaty person like me, I sweat all the time, then you get to cool down a little bit by having stuff on your feet. And yeah, we've got some great cons going on here. Tagita said no foot support. What are some other cons to walking around barefoot? Caitlin has a funny con based on a true story. Totally, write it in the chat. What's your con? Melissa said it's not as slippery.
Can
Could
I
be a
say
pro or a
can I say
yeah.
the con real quick?
Go for it,
Okay.
Caitlin.
This is based on a true story. My mom's gonna laugh at me because she's here. So I went barefoot in the house and I was running to the computer and I ended up breaking my toe. And it was a really bad experience. So that would be a con about being barefoot in the house.
Absolutely. I'd say a con for me, I've got laminate flooring in my house and I love sliding around on my socks. So if I'm barefoot, no sliding. What are some other cons to walking around the house barefoot?
I have a con.
What's your con?
So it happened the other day. I was playing with my sister, like we was trying to like karate chop each other or something.
Sure.
So I was like jumping and trying to like do a jump kick or something. And when I landed, I don't even know what I hit my foot on, but I hit my foot on something and it like just made my foot bleed just a little bit. So if I had shoes on, that wouldn't have happened.
Ouch. That's definitely a con. Melissa said you don't know what's on your floor from outside. You can't get on your bed without washing your feet. True. Don't want gross feet in my sheets. Tagita said, don't forget about doors. Tell me more about that, Tagita. How is that connected to our bare feet? What are some other?
I would feel bad for a person who would just hit their door. I'm a foot on a door because that would just. It happens. It's terrible, but it happens. So
Ouch.
I just feel bad, but that's something. I mean, like usually even in school, they're like, don't wear. Well, of course you don't go barefooted, but they're like, don't wear flip flops either. I will still wear slides to school, but that's something that can really happen because of heavy doors.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, stub toes are the worst. I stub my toes all the time and it hurts so bad. Other cons of barefoot. I'll say for me, just the sensation of if there's any dust on my floor, of feeling it with my feet is the worst for me. If I accidentally go down to breakfast and I'm barefoot, I have to go right back upstairs to grab socks. All right, we've got some pros and cons for barefoot. Let's move on to wearing socks inside. What are our pros, the plus sides of wearing socks around your house? Warm feet, absolutely. No dirty feet. What else do we have for wearing socks inside the house? Sliding on wood floor. Yep, you got it. That's my favorite. Socks are cute. It's true. I match my socks to my outfit every day. Feet are snug, but socks are black. As in the color. My feet are warm and it feels close to being barefoot. Ooh, so Tamar sees as sort of like the middle option. I like that. They are easy to lose. It's true. My poor lost sock basket has many an odd sock. You can be fashionable. I, in fact, have socks that say don't panic with the thumbs up symbol from the other slide. It's from a book I like. I think they're very fashionable. It just works. They're classics. Absolutely. Now, what are some of the cons to wearing socks around your house? Slipped and fell in my living room after mopping the floor. Yeah, totally. I'm glad there's slip resistant ones, Melissa, that have like the rubbery stuff on the sole. Oh, Kayla might have itchy socks. You might need different socks, Kayla. What are some other cons to wearing socks inside the house? Like white socks black by the dust on the floor. It's true. Can still get splinters. Yeah, they're not protective. Too hot, more socks to wash. Yep. Socks forever.
They are a never-ending cost.
Yeah, you just have to keep buying socks. When they wear out, you got to buy more socks.
That's the thing is, mine disappear. People steal my socks.
Oh no, that's terrible. Tamar, that is the worst sensation ever. If you step in something in the kitchen, it gets wet. Then you just have a wet sock. It's so bad. You can't share your pedicure. You get holes in your sock. Yeah.
I sincerely believe that there is like a sadistic sock ghost out there who just steals one sock. just to hurt you.
I read something once that like all your odd socks turn into the extra lids in your Tupperware cabinet, and that's why everything's uneven. Yep. All right, we have pros and cons for socks. Let's move on to house slippers, which are like slippers that you put your feet into, but you only wear them in the house. They never go outside. What are some pros of house slippers? Super comfy if you get furry ones. Ooh, they're cozy. What are some other pluses? No outside dirt. Absolutely. They can be real cute. Yeah, mostly no outside dirt. I like that they have grip on the bottom. Yeah, they're more protective, slip resistant. Exactly. I don't even need to say these things. You guys have them. Whenever I go in the storage room in the basement, the floor is kind of gritty, so I steal my partner's slippers so I don't get my socks in the grit in the storage room. All right, do we have any other pros for house slippers? Can they have extra cushioning? Yeah, you get like the memory foam ones. It's good for your back. All right, do we have any cons for house slippers? What are the downsides to having house slippers? They slip off your feet. Real hassle. You might trip over them. You do have to remember to put them on. Can't wear them outside. Exactly. You got to switch them at the door. That's a real hassle. Forget where you place them. Yeah, if you only have one pair, it's not like socks. You can't just go to the drawer and grab another pair. They can be expensive. You're right. Ooh, they might be hard to keep clean. Yeah, if you're like, these are my inside shoes, they better stay clean, and then they don't, ugh, the worst. Just have to decide, yeah. All right. So those are our pros and cons for house slippers, and we have one last footwear option. What about, oh, you forget they're in the house and you wear them outside. Yeah, then they're just dirt. Like if you use them to take the trash out, get something gross on your shoe. So what are some of the pros of wearing your outside shoes, wearing your street shoes inside the house? What's the plus side to wearing your street shoes? It's convenient. They look nice. Yeah, you might have great shoes. I always need more places to wear some heels. You don't have to think about it. Yep. Just one footwear option at all times. You can oh yeah, that might be how you break them in. It's a really good point. You guys are coming up with a lot of things I did not even think of while preparing this. Do we have any other pros to wearing your street shoes in the house? You can go outside and don't have to change into another shoe or take them off. Yeah, that is really convenient. That might work for me if I'm gonna like do some construction work around the house. Sometimes for a while, I had to like tear down the drywall in the guest room and put up new drywall, and I needed to wear outside shoes for that, so I wouldn't get fiberglass in my socks. No fun. All right. And as expected, what are the cons to wearing your street shoes in the house? Hurt your feet sooner or later. Your feet might be too warm. Track dirt in the house. Yep, lots of dirt. When people wear shoes in my house, I'm like, you're guests, I'm not going to yell at you, but ooh, my floors. Yeah, they might be uncomfortable if you're wearing them inside. If I were wearing heels to like look fancy or something, I don't want to clunk around my house in heels. That sounds terrible. No time for your feet to breathe. Yeah, sweaty feet. It's going to have stinky feet for the rest of your life. All right. It sounds like we have written down a lot of pros and cons for all of our different foot options. Oh, they might ruin your shoes. You're totally right. All right. So we have a little bit more information that we need for decision making. You get to think about your emotions and the culture that you come from. A lot of people are going to tell you that you have to make decisions based only on logic. That is not the case. You get to listen to what you want. If you are, to move away from our funny example and into a more serious one, if your gut says that you don't want to go to college and everyone around you and all of your lists tell you that you should go to college, you might be miserable at college. If you don't want to do it, it might mean that that's not the right decision for a reason. Now, it might mean sometimes you got to suck it up and do something that feels a little bit hard because it's the right thing to do or it's good for your future, but listen to your emotions. Don't sweep them off the table. Don't ignore them. They're an important part of the decision-making process. If, while you are trying to make a tough decision, you keep coming back to the same option over and over again, you want to go to technical school to become a carpenter, like, it seems like a silly idea. Maybe nobody's listening to you, but you keep thinking about it. You keep looking up technical school. You keep looking at carpentry and thinking that it's rad. Seems like that's something you want to pay attention to if that's part of what your brain or your body is telling you. You can also ask yourself, what are you used to? We just went through all these pros and cons for what we're going to wear on our feet. And honestly, from the pros and cons, I'm wondering if I should switch over to house slippers. I only ever steal Claire's, but like, what if I had my own house slippers? What if I, shelled out some money and got my own? But I wear socks in the house. I'm really used to that. Another thing that's worth taking in mind is, what does your family, what does your culture say? There are cultures where if you wear shoes in the house, it is incredibly offensive and people will be really upset and angry with you. That might be a really big part of your decision-making process. If you grew up never wearing shoes in the house, even like house slippers, for example, you can use that information to help influence your decision. You can take your feelings, you can take these illogical pieces of information into consideration. They are just as important as logical ones. I'll say this from experience, I have a lot of trouble listening to my emotions for making decisions because I'm like, I did my research, I made my pros and cons lists, like that's the only thing I should make my decisions based off of. And then the people around me are like, Galia, you're allowed to have feelings. What if you listen to your feelings a little bit more? So this is me encouraging all of you to listen to your feelings when you're making decisions. And once you have done all of this, you have entered your decision-making process in a state of calm. You have done research to find all the information that you need. You have written your pros and cons lists. You have figured out the emotions that you have related to this. Then you make your decision. Based on the information that we shared today, our pro-con lists, etc. My friends, what are you going to wear inside your house going forward? What is your choice? I'll share mine. It's socks. It's just what I'm coming back to. Got a bunch of socks. Someone said slippers. What else we got? What are people planning to wear inside their house in the future? Whether or not it's what you're wearing right now. House slippers are the best, but I like walking around barefoot. Kayla, I respect that and could never do it. Hanaja said slides and slippers, more socks, slippers and sandals. Ooh, sandals are good. You get that protection, but also your toes can breathe. All right, we have made our decisions. Slides. After you make your decision, there is one more step. It doesn't seem like there should be, but there is. Quick. Once you have made your decision, reassess and decide how you feel. Sometimes you make a decision based on all the information, based on the emotions that you think that you have, and then you suddenly realize that you are dreading the choice that you made. If you go through all of the research and you pick the college that you want to go to, if you go through all the research and you figure out that you want to go right to school or go right to work, or you want to have a kid and you're like, yes, this is the right decision. And then you're just queasy for the rest of the day or the rest of the week. And you're like, I don't know if I feel good about this. Or you feel great the day you make your decision, but a couple weeks later, it isn't working for you and you're feeling really uncomfortable. You can reassess. You are allowed to go back to step 5 here we go. No, we're step 5. There we go. Your pros and cons. You can rethink about your decision-making process and figure out whether or not that's something that you want to stick with. Melissa was talking about it earlier. If you go to community college and you're feeling, you know, like that isn't the right fit for you, you can transfer to another school later. Oh, that's such an interesting point. Tagita said, I feel like that's also a sign of imposter syndrome and distrusting yourself. That's a really tough line to tread, Tagita. You're really right, because sometimes if you decide you're going to go to college, let's say you get into Bryn Mawr and you're like, whoa, this is so cool. I'm so fancy. I'm going to Bryn Mawr. And then later you're kind of freaking out about it. Is it because it's not the right place for you and you realize that you're going to be uncomfortable there? Or it's because you're doubting yourself and you're not sure if you're the right fit because you think that you're not as great as that college is? It's a really good point. And it might mean that, you know, you need to spend a little bit more time on the emotions stage. Do you want to start working on your imposter syndrome? Do you need some help? Do you need some friends to help gas you up? Do you need to remember that you are so valuable and so worth it, and you shouldn't accept a lower option just because you think you're not all that in a bag of potato chips? All of you guys are all that in a bag of potato chips. So all of these are things that can influence your decision making. But it's also worth listening to your gut. For example, a thing that I do sometimes to make a decision. The other night I was trying to decide between sushi and Chinese food, and they're both super good in completely different ways. I want sushi if I'm like feeling like nice in my body and like want to have a light, sort of healthy, tasty, fishy dinner. And I want Chinese food if I'm going to sit in front of the TV and not move all night and just shove my face with General Tso's. Like, I know what I want Chinese food for. And I couldn't decide between them. So I flipped a coin and it told me that I was getting Chinese food. And my first response was to be disappointed. And if I was disappointed by the decision I made, well, that told me that I wanted sushi last night. Sometimes you make a decision, and what you feel after you make that decision lets you know that it wasn't the right one. So this is just to remind you, like, absolutely, Tagita, you're so right. Do not distrust yourself. Trust yourself to make good decisions. Stick to your guns if you have to. And also, let yourself back off from things. If you make a decision and it doesn't feel right, you're not stuck in that forever. You can change your mind. You can leave. We talked about that a while ago in the, what was the name of the workshop? We talked about how you're allowed to leave things. I can't remember it. It's on the tip of my tongue and it's gone. But on the workshop that I taught you guys. Pardon?
It was a belonging workshop.
Yes. So exactly. If you feel like you don't belong somewhere, you can leave. If you make a decision, it doesn't feel like the right one, you can make another decision. You are not stuck. You get to make choices. And like Melissa said, if you are short on time, if you're kind of freaking out about it a little bit, then you can ask for more time. See if you need some more space or help or support to figure these out. So this is our 6-step process, and I'm going to show everyone the steps one more time if you want to write these down, but also this was recorded and I can send the slides to Melissa. And feel free to go through all 6 of these steps when you are making a decision, from wearing socks in the house to what job you want to apply for to whether or not you're ready to start a family. Take a deep breath, figure out your options, do research, weigh the pros and cons, think about your emotions and the culture that you live in, the experiences you've had, and make a decision. And there you have it. Make some good choices, my friends.